This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Juan?
Well, President Obama has pledged to move forward on immigration reform and embraced a draft plan from Senators Charles Schumer and Lindsey Graham for overhauling the nation's immigration system. In a statement released by the White House Thursday, Obama praised the senators', quote, promising bipartisan framework, adding that it can, quote, can and should be the basis for moving forward. The four-point proposal from Senators Schumer and Graham includes high-tech identification cards, bolstering border security, creating a process for admitting temporary workers, and implementing a, quote, tough but fair path for legalization.
Well, the announcement comes just before a planned march on Washington this Sunday called by immigrant rights advocates. Over 100,000 people from a broad coalition of groups across the country are expected to rally at the National Mall, demanding President Obama live up to his promises and Congress pass comprehensive immigration reform. We're joined now in Washington, D.C. by a lead organizer of Sunday's march, Clarissa Martinez de Castro, the director of Immigration and National Campaigns at the National Council of La Raza. Clarissa, you met with President Obama. What were your demands? What did you talk to him about this past week?
One of the main purposes of that meeting was to make sure the administration understood very clearly the state of emergency that immigrant communities are living in every day, and that that state of emergency is created by inaction on immigration reform. We have heard commitments from the administration in the past, as well as from Congress, to do something to finally address this issue, but we haven't seen a lot of real action. So the idea was that they needed to start demonstrating very clearly steps to get there. And we have seen some of these steps happen this week, leading up to the march on Sunday.
Well, Clarissa, this promises, it looks like it's going to be the largest protest march of the Obama administration so far. And it seems that already there has been enormous reaction by the administration and by Congress just as you're organizing the march. There were a series of meetings that the president held. Luis Gutierrez, the congressman from Chicago, who has been a leading advocate of immigration reform, said, I think just yesterday, that he promised to vote for health reform on the basis that the administration was promising that it would move forward on immigration reform this year. So you're already getting a lot of at least verbal support. The question is, will it be translated into action in Congress? And could you give us a sense of what you feel about the proposals of Senator Schumer and Lindsey Graham?
Sure. First, let me say that, certainly my organization is part of March for America, but it is important to note that there are over 700 organizations across the country who are part of this effort, and it is that combined energy that it's bringing these results. Yesterday, as you mentioned, Senator Schumer, Democrat from New York, and Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, unveiled some broad parameters of what they're proposing will be then turned into a legislative vehicle. There's not a great deal of detail in those parameters at this point. So we look forward to those ideas being swiftly translated into a legislative vehicle that then we can analyze in detail. So far, they're talking about 4 pillars that will drive that bipartisan proposal, and they deal largely, as they describe them, with border security, worker flows, which means legal immigration issues, with worker eligibility verification to work, and with a legalization program.
Clarissa, La Raza opposed the health care reform bill?
We issued a statement yesterday that we didn't think it really addressed the needs of the most vulnerable among our populations.
Well, we're joined here in New York by Ana Maria Archila of the community organization Make the Road by Walking. Welcome to Democracy Now!
Thank you so much.
The importance of this march, this upcoming march, and the need to get comprehensive immigration reform this year, if possible, could you talk about that?
Yes. Well, immigrant communities across the country have been waiting and waiting to see a real solution to the crisis that we have. We have a legal system that basically creates a second class of non-citizens that are easily exploitable, that are exploited at work every day, that when they go into the detention centers do not have any sense of due process, that are forced to live in fear and are facing the realities of being separated by from their families. And so this legal system has existed in this country for too long, so long that now we have 12 million people who are undocumented and who live under these conditions every day. So all of us worked really hard to make sure that to create a different political space in the country. Back before the elections in 2006, millions of people came out to march. Millions of people who could lose their jobs, who were afraid of government, came out and took over the public space to say these needs to change. In 2008, over 10 million Latinos helped elect President Obama, helped put the Democrats in control of the Senate and the House of Representatives with the promise that immigration reform would be a priority. And nothing, there hasn't been real movement. And at the same time, there are people like Marta Freire, one of our members who lives in Queens, a woman from Ecuador, undocumented woman who in 9/11 was one of the cleanup workers after 9/11. She now has developed cancer, terminal cancer, and she wants to be able to see her daughters. She wants to be able to travel to her country and say goodbye to her daughters before she dies, after she did the work that she did for this country. There are many stories like Marta's story, and that's why people are marching on Sunday, to make sure that the message of restoring dignity and opportunity to millions of people that have done so many things to make this country strong. It's that promise that Obama made and that members of Congress made is actually kept.
One of the things I think I was struck by in terms of the parameters that were unveiled by Senator Schumer and Lindsey Graham was that there's going to be an emphasis in terms of future immigration more on high-tech workers rather than on blue-collar workers, basically bringing in more computer and scientific workers from other parts, expanding the H-1B portion of immigration and reducing the number of low-income workers that are coming in the country. Do you have some concern still about some of the issues that are being raised by Senator Schumer and Senator Graham?
Well, so first I want to say, I think the organizing that has happened in immigrant communities, both street organizing and political organizing, has taken us this far. We were able to get President Obama to meet with immigration advocates. We were able to start seeing some action in the Senate. So that's great. The parameters that are established by the op-ed that Senator Schumer and Graham published yesterday do emphasize quite heavily enforcement, and also emphasize quite heavily what you mentioned, which is creating flows for migration for kind of highly educated immigrants. We know that that's one of the interests of businesses in these countries, being able to attract and retain people who are highly skilled. But we also know that the reality of these countries, that some of the industries that are growing fastest are not the high-tech industries, are not those industries, are other industries that we also need to keep in these countries. So there needs to be a way to look at the future and think about how to welcome workers in a way that that is organized, that is orderly, and that also protects and respects the rights of those workers. And we look forward to working on those details.
Clarissa Martinez de Castro in Washington. I wanted to go back to that issue of health care. It's very significant. You've come out with a statement yesterday. Why do you feel the health care reform bill does not help the most vulnerable immigrants in this country?
Well, Granted, we understand that the fight over healthcare is very difficult. We also believe that one of the purposes should be to remove the structural barriers to those people who are having a hard time either obtaining healthcare or obtaining quality healthcare. In the case of the Latino community, we have one of the largest uninsured populations, and we feel that there was a real opportunity here to right a wrong that was done in the past, where we started treating legal immigrants and U.S. citizens as if they were different classes of people. There was a real opportunity to do that. We know that many folks try to manipulate the immigration issue to block healthcare reform. This is a recurring problem, and that, again, one of the reasons why we need to do immigration reform. But instead of standing strong on principles of